Thank you. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of March 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. At this time, we would welcome any new public business, that is, business that's not already on the agenda for this evening, that someone would like to bring to the attention of the Selectmen. Is there anyone here with new public business? Seeing none, we'll move on. Public hearing will be held on the application of T&J Oriental, Inc., doing business as Blue Karma, Yana Chen, manager, 6 Purchase Street, for a change of license category from wine, malt, and cordials to all alcohol at that location. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Chung Lee. I'm counsel for T&J, DBA Blue Karma. Next to me is Yana Tina Chen, who's the principal of the restaurant. We are here tonight on an application to change the category of the license, currently beer and wine and cordials, to an all-alcohol beverage license. The reason why we're doing this is that, first, a lot of our clientele has been asking for it, and we've been holding off because we felt that we need to get a control as to what our food products are. We felt that good service with good food is more important than serving alcohol, quite frankly. But now, with the increasing menu that we're coming out with, we've come to realize that cordials just doesn't go well with the specialized foods that we have. It's just way too sweet. Where humans are very particular, we like clashing tastes in order to get the flavors out of the food. So therefore, we're asking for a change of category to all alcohol. Will make a lot of our clientele very happy. This is not a bar, as everybody knows. We've been in business since 2014. We had no complaints and no violations whatsoever. We're only using this as an added service to our clientele in our food restaurant business. And nothing else changed. That's all we're here for. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mills, do you have questions, sir?
Nothing. It's my favorite restaurant, run by the nicest people, and if anybody deserves a full license, if they want it, they should have it.
Diane?
Yeah, so this is a great example of owners being on the premises of a restaurant. You do great work. The food, the sushi pizza is the best anywhere. If nobody has had sushi pizza, it's seaweed crust. You don't get anything better than that. Evan, her husband, does the cooking of all that sushi. Actually, doesn't cook it. That's what I love about it. And Tina has been on our case, Joe, for 5 years. I couldn't believe she just said 5 years, telling us she's coming in. It took you 5 years to get in here and request this, but you certainly deserve it. You're a success story in Danvers, and we really appreciate the work you do and the volunteer stuff you do for DEEP and other organizations. So thank you.
Thank you.
Selectman Bennett?
Thank you. I too frequent the restaurant. Well, I don't frequent. We go occasionally, but always good service, always good food, always well maintained. But a question for you, through you, Mr. Chairman, perhaps to Joe. How is this possible that you take beer, wine, and cordial and just transfer it to all alcohol? And I assume we have an all alcohol license to give.
Mr. Chairman, this license that will be, assuming it'll be awarded this evening to Blue Karma, is one of the new special legislation licenses, one of the 10 that we have recently received approval from the legislature. How this will, this transaction will occur, that assuming that the board approves this transfer tonight, we will forward the paperwork on to the ABCC. And until we receive approval from the ABCC, they will still be acting on their beer, wine, and cordials license. Once ABCC approves this license, they will turn in the beer, wine, and cordials license to the board, to the licensing board for distribution elsewhere. This license is the first license under the 10, and it would be issued under the downtown and Danvers Port area of the new legislation, and it is so mentioned right on the application.
Right, so the license they turn in will be available for anybody at any location.
That is correct.
Right, and this one is just only able to be used in that downtown area.
That is correct, and the beer, wine, and cordials license that will be turned in is a quota license, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I have talked to Tina and Evan about this. I've talked to Ms. Ellsworth at length already, and it's a commitment that my client wishes to take to increase the food service and so forth. We realize that it's more of a limited license, but to us, it's more important that we have good service to the public.
Thank you. Mr. Clark?
Just wonder why they didn't choose to get one or the other. We still have 2 full licenses that are available, do we not, that have been turned in?
They're just beer and wine.
I thought there was at least 1, if not 2,
There is,
full.
under the special legislation, the original special legislation, the 6,
Yeah.
there is one available, but that one is tied to the location.
Okay, I just thought we still had one that wasn't tied up because it had been returned to us.
There is not.
Okay. I have heard nothing but great things about your restaurant, and I wish you luck, and I'm very happy that you're going to get this, and we already had the question asked that I was interested in about the turning into the old license, and good luck.
Thank you very
You
much.
are the epitome of what we want in town for businesses.
Thank you.
I am a patron as well, enjoy the food and the drinks when I go, and with your long history of service without any issues, I'm fully confident in this transfer. This is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak to this application?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? To accept a motion on the application.
I move we accept the application as presented.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Good luck to
Thank you very much. May I approach? I have the copies of the green receipt for the notification as
Sure.
well. Thank you.
Presenting to the clerk.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. Oh. The board will hear a recommendation from the fire chief regarding a proposed fee increase for smoke detector inspections. Mr. Chief, welcome.
Good evening. As you know, we're looking to raise the smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector inspection fee from $35 to $50. The $50 is pretty much the standard fee in the area. I've actually taken a poll of the area fire chiefs, and we're one of the last ones left that is not charging the $50. I need the permission of the board to raise the fee to $50. Mass General Law allows us to charge $25. I assume that there was an approval by the board to raise it to $35, and now I'm asking for an increase to $50. It'll bring in a little bit more revenue to the department. It's not much, but every little bit helps. And as I said, it's pretty much the standard in the area.
Thank you. Before I move to the board members asking questions, some fees are approved by town meeting and others not. Where does this one stand?
So, yeah, Selectman Clark raised that issue on our budget, at our budget workshop on the 9th. So we took a look. I think our initial feeling was this was one that did not require board approval. But based on our research, it does require board approval, but does not require town meeting approval. So this is a board decision.
Thank you. I'll start with Selectman Langley's.
Well, first off, you could have raised money even faster had you sold tickets to when you tried to singe the town manager. I think that would have been a lot, you would have raised much more money.
I don't know if I would characterize it as trying to singe the town manager, but
I don't know, I want to ask the people that were there. But, recently, my mom's house was inspected, and, people don't realize you live in your house a long time, and she had something like 30 sprinkler heads that were no good. Now, Brooksy went in and did it, and, it was like, it wasn't that they had to replace them, it was, wow, nobody had ever told them that they needed to be inspected and what to do. So now, this is what you do when you go in, is educate people when, as we inspect. And so it's certainly worth the money to be sending our firefighters and inspectors out more often. And of course, there's a cost, so I totally support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Bennett?
Thank you. So, for disclosure, I sit on the Government Affairs Committee for the North Shore Association of Realtors, and I have served on the State Board. And the North Shore Association of Realtors, as well as the Massachusetts Association of Realtors, are against fees that are added to transfers of property by sellers. They're against Governor Baker's proposal to add a fee to raise funds for climate resiliency, climate control. They're against the fee that they're proposing to put on deed transfer tax to add to the CPA. So being on that board, I am telling you that the Board of Realtors is against adding fees to the sale of somebody's home.
If I might,
And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No,
It's
not
a
at all.
fact.
That's why I'm here. Surprisingly enough, when we go to do smoke detector inspections, a lot of times the realtors will actually, they bring a check already made out, and we have to refuse their check because they've already made it out to $50, because it is so common throughout the area that it's just, to them, it's accepted that it's $50. They're surprised that we still charge the $35.
Still, it's an added fee to the seller to sell their home in order to move on. So those are just my comments.
Thank you. Selectman Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no objection to this whatsoever. I think it's a good point in time to make a check on things, as Diane might have related to her mother's house. You never realize when some of these things aren't up to code, and it's certainly very gratifying to know that we have so few structure fires now because of the intensive, aggressive, proactive enforcement by our fire department. Thank you, Bob, for all the work you do in your department.
You're welcome.
Selectman Mills?
Seems right to me. Thank you, Chief. I got nothing further.
Yeah, I fully support this as well. I'll accept a motion on the recommendation.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the fire chief as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further comment on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. The board will hear from the police chief regarding the liquor violation. While the chief is going, I want to remind the selectmen that the liquor violation and the information we received, the names have been redacted, as this is still an open court case, and we have, the names have been redacted as such. Thank you very much. Chief?
Good evening. You folks did receive the paperwork. And as already stated, yes, it is an open court matter, and that's part of the reason why it took so long to be presented tonight. I wanted to see if it could run the course in the court system prior to coming here. It doesn't look like that's going to take place anytime soon, so I'm moving it forward before the board. Specifically, this deals with the Mexicali Grill on Andover Street in Danvers. It's a 204 CMR 2.052, permitting an illegality on the licensed premise, to wit, Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 69, sale or delivery of an alcoholic beverage to an intoxicated person. On January 17th of this year, at approximately 11:23 in the evening, Danvers officers responded to a motor vehicle accident on I-95 South on-ramp from Route 114. A motor vehicle had been traveling westbound on 114, failed to negotiate the left-hand turn to go onto the ramp, drove off the roadway down the embankment into a swamp or drainage area. The car was partially submerged in the water, water up to halfway up the door frame, and the operator came out, was injured. Subsequent statements that were made led to the subsequent statements of intoxication were made. Further investigation from the officers determined that she exhibited signs of intoxication and operating under the influence. She was placed under arrest for OUI. She was transported to Beverly Hospital for her injuries. The following evening, Sergeant Mike Balsley went to Mexicali Restaurant. He spoke to the manager on duty, who was also on the license, the liquor license as the manager. And through that conversation, she did confirm that that party was there the evening prior, that she had consumed some alcohol, some margaritas there, and that she had left just prior to this accident, just shortly before there. We received some receipts from the manager on record showing that what was believed to be her receipt, the operator's receipt from the evening before, showing 2 Patron margaritas had been purchased. There were other statements made earlier at the crash scene that are a little bit different than the receipt. However, another receipt from a table that was next door to them that said that the manager said had friends of hers that were with her that evening also showed that several margaritas had been purchased for that table. So that's why we're here before the board this evening, and it would be my recommendation to the board that you'd be bringing the manager or the owner forward to speak to this issue.
Thank you, Chief. Start with you, Selectman Bennett.
Thank you, Chief. When I read it, with the statements, it was obviously the person in question was had too much to drink. But how do we connect the dots to the restaurant? The receipt said 2 drinks. Are we saying she was overserved?
Yes, that she was intoxicated, and she was placed under arrest for operating under the influence of liquor. She had subsequently had consumed the alcohol at Mexicali, then immediately drove away and was involved in the accident.
No, I understand that, but is 2 drinks unusual to be served to somebody?
No.
I'm just trying to connect the dots why we want to bring them before us, what the violation is. If you're saying it's over-serving, I don't consider 2 drinks over-serving.
Well, the only thing that I can answer that to is when they did serve her, it led to her intoxication, whether it took 5 drinks to get there or 2. Their serving is what led to the intoxication. And they're supposed to be observant of the people that they're sending the alcohol to, so if they do start to become impaired, then they're supposed to shut them off and make appropriate accommodations for
Right, and if you could tell me that the drinks that were bought at the adjoining table were served to her table, I would say that was a serious problem, that she was obviously overserved, but short of knowing that, I guess I'll have to wait and see what the manager has to say on that.
Yeah, and that's why this is before the board.
Right,
for
well,
them
I
make
want
a
to bring that up now,
determination.
that I couldn't connect the dots on this one. Some of them are so obvious, but I don't think this is an obvious over-serving issue. Whether she got inebriated or not, I don't think that establishment can tell that with 2 drinks. At least I don't think they could. I could be wrong, but that's just my feeling on this particular one.
Selectman Clark?
Okay, the questions I have is, was her admission at the site of the accident self-incriminating? And if it was, had she been read her Miranda rights before that? I have a little problem with that as well, because I don't think 2 drinks are enough. Realizing it could be easy enough that she could have had more than 2 there, but this seems to be, maybe it's going to be a little bit of a weak case coming before us, just to alert you to that.
And that's fine, but many of these cases that we see, there isn't, I mean, sometimes there's plenty of evidence for us to go forward and present it to you, and many times there isn't. This is a case that's kind of tight, and I admit that, but it's a judgment call that needs to be made by the board, not one that should be made by me, because then it leaves it not to, to the impartiality of the whole issue from establishment to establishment should be determined not by me, but by the board.
May I make a comment, Mr. Chairman? When Bill's done.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I'm not against bringing a new business before us to reaffirm to them what our policies are and what we expect a business in town how to operate. So from that point of view, I have no problem with that. let it go from there.
My only other concern would be that, would it be possible that one of the arresting officers from the scene would be here at our hearing when we have it, rather than just you? No offense. And I've always in the past been questioning the fact that in the past, only the chief would appear before us, and it wouldn't involve those people who were at the scene. They might have something more to add. I mean, it's not gonna, obviously, it isn't mandatory, but it's just something as an idea.
Well, I would probably recommend that. I don't know if it would be wise for him to come here and try to give testimony and then have him then go to a criminal proceeding and then.
Okay, all right.
That's the issue, and that's why some of the statements, obviously, I'm not saying the statements, and like I said, we're walking a fine line with some of this.
Okay.
Selectman Mills.
Thank you. Hi, Chief. First of all, I think it would be good if the manager, and of course the bartender, came before us. If we could wait until after the criminal case is concluded, the officer who spoke with the employee there making inquiry as to who served what and who had what, because in the report, it's like, I have a sense that the investigating officer was not fully convinced as to whether or not some of that adjoining table margarita ended up with this person. And it's not the biggest case in the world, but I just think that would be nice if that could be. And I respect the sentiments of the board of wanting to have something further and you bringing the case to us. The other thing that occurs to me, it has nothing to do with the particular case, but I was a DA 50 years ago, in Cambridge, actually. There are a lot of police officers, a lot of departments, and the quality of the paperwork done by our police department and our officers is really, really high quality. And so you're at the top, so you have to take the first compliment, but it's really, from my standpoint of 50 years of looking at these things, this is quality stuff. And I also couldn't connect the dots between the two tables. So maybe the officer who did the inquiry could add a little bit to that, and it doesn't seem like the biggest case in the whole world, but it's important, and she could have killed herself, you know? So thank you, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Diane Lewis?
I think the report was extremely well-written. I had no problem following what happened that night. I absolutely understand why you're asking us to bring in the owner. It's pretty obvious, and thank you.
Yeah, whatever the will of the board is afterwards, that's the will of the board. But I think this needs to be presented.
Yeah.
And I'm in support. Anytime we have an establishment that's had an issue or related to an issue, they should come before us and speak their case to us and present what they want to present. This isn't, it wouldn't matter. I would rather have 10 of these, especially with a new business, come before us because there's a potential issue, and just even if it ends up being a warning shot across the bow, I still want the people to come before us. It wouldn't have mattered where she had said she last drank. I would have, it would be important to have them there. A couple of questions, and maybe you said it in the narrative. I'm trying to read the police report as well as the two. Did she indicate that that was her only stop or her last stop?
That's how it was presented.
Okay, it's her only stop.
Yeah.
Okay, because the other thing is, I'm looking at this, and I've been to many a restaurant, especially a theme restaurant like that, and they're serving, her bill was $25 for 2 drinks. It would be nice, I know it has an end time of 10:52 in the evening. I don't know if it indicates the time the ticket was opened, because obviously 2 drinks in a half hour is different than 2 drinks in 3 hours. But that's $12.50 for 1 drink, and that's, some of these can get actually quite large. So I'm surprised that the only 1 ounce of Patron, which actually happens to be very strong liquor, it just seems, I'm thinking that it was a contributing factor that and it might have been, depends on how quickly she consumed them as well. It just says it was closed at 10:31 p.m. And so, I have no questions. I think whenever we get a report of intoxication with an identified potential source, we should have the opportunity to speak to that facility. Is there any other discussion on what's been presented? I'll entertain a motion.
Could I just say?
Sir.
I respect the chief's kind of request that we not do anything further until the criminal case is concluded.
I'm not
Is
sure,
that-
did the chief say that? The chief said this is an ongoing case, and because of the length of the case, he's not sure he wanted to wait until the end. Chief, could you elaborate?
Yes, I delayed bringing it forward initially because it started in January, now we're in March, and the board's just hearing about it tonight. Now, the reason I did that was because it was an ongoing criminal case, but I didn't want to see this go out for 6, 8 months, maybe a year by the time everything gets finished, and then bring it before the board. There'd be an issue if I waited that long, so that's why I presented it tonight. But to further wait until the very end of the court case, that could be months upon months away.
You didn't request that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it as soon as you did. I would not want to wait till the disposition of the case, like you said, appeals and whatever could happen, delays. I want to know sooner rather than later if there's an issue that the selectmen should address or not. So, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd make a motion that we have the manager of the restaurant in question before us and the bartender that served as soon as possible.
I'm presuming the normal one is under the
Yes.
240
Under
CMR.
240
with all
CMR,
considerations.
to do permitting and illegality on the licensed premise, to wit, yes, all the above.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Thank you, Chief, for bringing this to our attention. And I presume it's our next available date, next meeting?
April 2nd?
April 2nd.
Well, if I may offer a caution, the last time we asked a retail store, liquor store to be before us at the next meeting, the owner came and said he had an excuse, and the chairman allowed him not to come, and we had voted 5-0 to be here.
Yes, and that's the chairman's prerogative.
So
So we're, if
at
we
the
said-
next possible meeting,
At the next possible meeting. Okay,
I think would be appropriate.
thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Don't go far, Pat.
Yeah.
I know.
While you're there, the board will vote to accept a gift from the VFW to the DARE program in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Paragraph 53A. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Town Manager.
Since the chief is there and ready to go, I'll let him speak to this. I won't steal any of his thunder.
I think it'll be a little easier to present to the board, too. The VFW approached us. They said they would like to donate to the DARE program, approximately $1,500 gift to the DARE program. So we're here before the board for the acceptance. Obviously, when they do present, we'll have some public notification and probably a little brief story in the paper.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? I forget, I think, Mr. Clark, are you the first one on this
Just
rotation?
want to thank the VFW for the generosity.
Thank you. Mr. Mills?
Nothing.
Ms. Langley?
Yep. Great job by the VFW.
Very nice of them to do so.
Yes, and we thank them as well. I'll entertain a motion on the gift.
Make a motion that the board accept a gift from the VFW to the DARE program in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Is that
Second.
sufficient?
You want the letter?
With the
Oh,
letter
with
to
the
go out.
Yep. Okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes, it's much easier to accept money. The board will vote to proclaim April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day in the town of Danvers. I don't mean to spring this on you, but I think you're the most appropriate person to read a proclamation if you want, Mr. Clark. It is Arbor Day. And you are the most professional person on the board to read us.
Caught me there. Okay. Proclamation Arbor Day. When Masters Bay Colony was settled in 1630, the town of Boston had no trees, although there were thick forests in the areas around the settlement and on the harbor islands. And whereas, when the first settlers arrived in the Great Plains in the 1800s, they found miles of lush, rolling grassland, but few, if any, trees. And whereas, the planting, maintenance, care, and removal of shade trees is a service purely public in its nature, undertaken for the common good, and whereas the general laws of the Commonwealth state, quotation marks, the governor shall annually issue a proclamation setting apart the last Friday in April as Arbor Day and Bird Day, recommending its observance by the public in the planting of trees, shrubs, vines, and particularly those attractive to birds, in the promotion of forest growth and culture, and end of quote. And whereas we realize the benefits derived from trees. Trees help beautify the landscape, cleanse and purify the air, moderate temperatures, reduce noise pollution, provide windbreaks, reduce runoff and erosion, provide habitats for wildlife, increase property values and of our social fabric, part of our social fabric. Whereas we, the Board of Selectmen, do hereby proclaim Friday, the 26th day of April, 2019 as Arbor Day in the town of Danvers. Signed by the Board of Selectmen.
I'll accept the motion to accept.
So moved.
Motion made. Seconded?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, while we're on this, just jumping ahead, can I ask through you to the town manager, how many trees a year the town plants?
You stumped me. I will
I don't
have an
need it.
answer for
I'm sure you don't
Yeah.
have one right now.
Yeah.
Somebody gave me a number and I found it a little unbelievable, so.
We have more money, yeah, we have the ability to plant more than we do. We're always looking for places to plant trees. We have, but I'll report, I'd like to give you the actual number. I don't
Thanks.
want to throw something out.
And I know we usually have a budget
We-
number and we don't always spend it.
We rarely spend all of the budget. We're constantly looking, and we, you know, if you would like to see a shade tree or a fruit tree somewhere in the vicinity of your property, you should give us a call, because there's a possibility we may be able to accommodate, so.
Thank you.
You can call the Public Works Department.
All right, is there any more other questions on that agenda item? No, we've made the motion, accepted it. So, the town manager will report to the board on various items of interest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is fairly brief tonight, in between the budget workshop and gearing up for the Finance Committee and getting the warrant into fighting shape. But I do have a couple of items. You received a copy tonight of the Treasurer's Quarterly Cash and Investment Report. That's something a couple of years ago we started providing on a quarterly basis. It's really a best practice. You see a lot of ebb and flow between these accounts depending on when payments are coming in and when payments are going out. But you can see a full year snapshot here in terms of where the town's cash is deposited. Joe and his staff manage this very closely. And I'm sure if anybody had questions about anything on this, Joe would be happy to answer those questions.
Is there any questions on the cash flow report? None from the board, please.
Nope.
Proceed.
You also received a copy tonight of a memorandum from Sharon Clement in the DPW department to me, recommending that we pursue funding to help develop a municipal vulnerability preparedness plan. So there are grant funds available to help towns and cities go through a process to identify vulnerabilities that may be caused through climate change. In Danvers, that's the two risks that we face are generally considered to be drought and flooding. So on the back side of that memorandum is a letter to the state signed by me that's supporting that application from staff so that we can get started on that process.
I'm not very smart about this, but how is flooding, is it because it fills our storm drains? Is that why it's hazardous? I don't understand.
So mainly it's from large storms. I mean, it's mentioned briefly in the memorandum itself, but hurricanes and nor'easters can pose that threat. Also, yeah, the stormwater system being overwhelmed by significant amounts of water that we're not ready for. So it could be either through the wastewater system or from the rivers swelling.
Is it because of what it picks up? So going into the storm drain, what all the floods and everything pick up to put into the storm drain? Is that what
Or
the
just
hazard
more,
is?
or more water than the system can accommodate. I mean, the system's designed to percolate and take water at certain rates. You wouldn't be able to build a system to withstand, say, 1,000-year flood. But as the major storm events are becoming more frequent, we're seeing that the system ends up getting pushed to capacity on a more regular basis. So part of this process may identify some areas where we may want to look at modifying or redirecting some of our stormwater
So I'm
collection.
reading too much into the word hazard. Hazard meaning it's overflowing or.
Yeah, it's not a
non-hazard
we're not
material.
talking hazards in the sense that
Okay.
some toxic waste is
Yeah.
percolating up and posing a health risk. It's more, where is your community vulnerable to the impacts of more frequent large storms, hurricanes, nor'easters, things like that.
Of the hazard of overabundance.
So it would be sort of a supplement to our hazard mitigation plan.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions on this?
I just have a comment. I think that we ought to be very aware of this situation because lack of water and supply of it is one problem, but the overabundance of water, certainly what's happening right now out in Nebraska. My brother used to live in an area that was almost a desert out there by Omaha, and I saw pictures on this TV screen the last couple of nights, and over half of Offutt Air Force Base is flooded, and that's one of our most secure supposed facilities in the country. And big bridges are washed out, dams are washed out. If a combination, we had it, I think, the first year that Gardner and I were on the board, we had that Mother's Day flood that was pretty significant. And I remember that you couldn't even get from down Hobart Street, that was flooded. Maple Street was flooded. Almost everywhere around town was flooded. And we had the water coming over the wall into the cemetery from the mill pond. It was pretty substantial, way more than any of us had ever seen in our lifetime. And certainly that could be a problem.
Any other comments on that item?
I have one other item, but I'd like to let the town clerk provide a brief update based on a topic that's piqued a lot of interest at the budget workshop on last Saturday.
Mr. Chairman, at the budget workshop, I mentioned that we will be installing the new tabulation equipment for use at on the May 7th annual town election, and some of the board members indicated if there were any training sessions available, and I indicated that we will be thoroughly training staff and our election workers, and it'll be training given by the supplier of the equipment. And for your information, we have scheduled 2 sessions to accommodate different times. One on Wednesday, April 17th from 2 to 4, and Thursday, April 18th from 6 to 8. And if any one of the board members feels free to drop by and take a look.
Thank you.
And while I'm at it, I will indicate to the board that nomination papers for the town election are due no later than 5 o'clock next Tuesday, the 26th. And the ballot in itself is taking shape, but we are lacking a couple of town meeting candidates in precinct 2 and 1 in precinct 6. So all points bulletin for anybody that would like to run from precinct 6 or precinct 2. There are some vacancies currently.
Mr. Chairman, did somebody take out papers for Housing Authority, Joe?
Yes,
thank
the incumbent has.
Thank you very much. Mr. Town Manager, you're...
Yep. The last item I wanted to update the board on was the revised disposition in the dangerous dog case that the board considered late last year and early this year. There were 5 items in that disposition that required action on behalf or by the Noyens, and I wanted to just briefly report what the status of each of those items were. So the first item was that the dog be confined to a secure fence in the backyard, and that required an inspection. And we had Eric Richard from our engineering department did meet with the homeowner and walked the perimeter and inspected the fence and did indeed report back that it is in good repair and sturdy, and in his opinion is satisfactory in terms of that item. We do have proof of insurance on the property, which was a second requirement, in an amount not less than $100,000. So we do have a copy of that homeowner's insurance policy on file in the town manager's office. We do have proper licensure and vaccination paperwork on file in the clerk's office. We have evidence that the family has been taking the dog to obedience training on a weekly basis, and the attorney has confirmed that the trainer has been in open and back and forth communication with the family in terms of progress and what's required. So that's one we'll monitor. One of the questions now not required here, but we will be asking. We have proof of the sessions and we'll be looking for a report from the trainer at some point in terms of progress made. And then in terms of the reimbursement for expenses, I am waiting for confirmation that checks have been issued to the two families identified in the disposition. So I will report out to the board once that's been confirmed.
I have two questions. One is on the one about the dog training. The condition was that they come back and present to us from a certified or a professional what the cadence is going to be. So should I presume that the cadence is and will continue to be weekly sessions?
It is weekly sessions, and the confirmation I've received is that the plan is to continue with weekly sessions.
Okay.
And just to be clear, they're not here because the instruction that David DeLuca and I gave to them was if they could provide all of the written material, that we would be reporting back out. So we do have, what it says is that there will be, that the board will be provided evidence, and I can certainly forward the letter from the trainer if that's something that the board would like to see. But what I'm reporting is that, based on our review of that and confirmation with the attorney, that those sessions are indeed happening.
I guess the point I'm making is less that it's about that it's happening now, but more that they are compelled to do that on a weekly basis. We said as a board, and I particularly was on this one, was we're not dog training professionals. So we didn't know if a monthly meeting or a weekly meeting or a daily, and you know, there's some place in the middle. Obviously, daily is too much, and you know, if they came back and said every 6 months, I think we would have had issue with that. And so, I think they were supposed to document what the professional said and adhere to it. I'm hearing that they're going, and I'm wondering if there's a document from the professional saying, it is my recommendation, weekly meetings.
They are in full compliance with what the board requested. They're going once a week to training, and I've received some written material from the trainer. I'd be happy to forward that.
Okay.
But our view is that they are certainly agreed. If we had found out that the plan was to go once a year to a trainer, I think we'd be recommending to the board that they are failing to satisfy the requirement. But I think weekly is probably more often than I would have anticipated. So I was pleased to learn that.
I have some more comments, but I'll wait for the board if they have other comments as well. Board members? Anybody have comments?
Well, to this issue, I don't need a written proof. The town manager's telling us
No, I mean,
that's
in
what's
general,
happening, that's
the
fine.
the whole subject.
And I think my understanding was they'd start on a program and continue a program under the recommendation of the trainer. So the dog will get training as needed. I didn't expect a weekly training session myself,
Surprise weekly, too.
yeah.
And I think, again, I think at some point I would anticipate, you know, the final sentence in that section of the disposition is that any other corrective action should, you know, that the proof of training which we have and a recommendation, if any. So if at some point the trainer provides a letter to the town saying we've been meeting with this dog every Monday for 7 months, and in our view, these meetings are not required this frequently anymore, that's something we'd share. But I think we, you know, as with the board, I'm not a trainer either, so we would defer. And in consultation with the chief, you know, there is no, you know, engineers are PEs. There is no licensure that we would look for in terms of this. So we're comfortable with what's been presented to us. And
So with the revised language that we voted on, that restarted the clock because part of the modifications that were asked for was the start date. When did that start date expire?
I believe the board met on February 8th, so it expired between the last meeting and this meeting. So we've been in pretty constant communication with the attorney on a variety of these items.
But they've had that opportunity, so they've had their 30 days plus a couple more weeks.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair.
I'm concerned they haven't met all the conditions, specifically the last one, which should have been the easiest one, if anything.
Well, I want to caution the board. I mean, I have been more involved in that item than is appropriate, in my opinion. The board asked for actions to be taken, and at a certain point, the board's authority to intervene in what ultimately will be a dispute between private parties, we will reach that point. I think we have reached that point. I am optimistic and hopeful that this will be resolved. It may not be, and at that point, I think the board will have to make a decision about whether they want to find the Noyens in violation of the disposition as written. But you know, we are limited in our ability to compel private parties to do certain things. I think everything that is in this is appropriate, but we need to be cautious about overstepping our authority in terms of a private party dispute.
understand. I would like to ask, I would make a motion, or look for board support that if the conditions, that we have them, the Nugents back before us, the next meeting, subject to any open conditions. If all the conditions are solved and served, then that's fine. But if there's open conditions, we would like to have them back to talk about that, the reasoning behind the open conditions at our next meeting. I don't want to go 2 more weeks, find out there isn't final, because then that puts it at
So
60 days.
I just want to be very careful. An attempt has been made to comply with that item in the disposition. As I said, I've been more, attempts have been made to comply with that item. I think that the board has to be very careful about wading into waters that are inappropriate in terms of becoming involved in what would ultimately will become a private party dispute, could end up in small claims court or any other number of places. I think the board needs to be cautious.
Mr. Bennett?
Did we not get involved when we put that as a stipulation?
Again, to be clear, I think we're on solid footing with the disposition as written. I think I won't say any more than to say that I think we should be cautious in terms of becoming overly involved in a private party dispute.
Did I not get information that they had agreed to fulfill that last? Or did I not see it?
I don't want to say more than I probably should at this point in terms of what ultimately will become a private party dispute.
All right, so I know what I saw. Thank you. Okay.
If it's the will of the board to wait till the next meeting and get an update, that's fine, before
An update
suggesting
on what?
action
An
on
update on what?
fulfillment of all the conditions.
I thought they did fulfill all the conditions that our legal counsel says we can get involved in.
There's a condition we said, and I understand
I understand that, but
that has not been fulfilled.
I'm listening and now saying, although I would love to be a part of that, if my legal counsel is saying that we should not deal with a civil, possible civil suit, then I'm gonna take advice of counsel, so I'm guessing that that's what I'm being told. And, yeah, unless, to the best of my knowledge, from what I heard, every condition is being met at this point, not completed, but is being met to the satisfaction of the police chief and legal counsel, who was the 2 people that we put on. If now legal counsel is saying that we should not get involved in a possible small claims or civil suit, then I would not want to get involved in something that town council's advising me not to. I don't feel like hiring my own attorney, so that's sort of what I'm asking. I know town manager can't. If I have to call Dave DeLuca and ask him if that's what he means, I will. But that's what I'm understanding. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. So I do not, I guess I would say that if they are not complying with something in there, that's the town manager's job to tell us that of anything that we can control. And I would expect that he would come to us without us having to ask him if something we've put as a condition is not being met, then that's his job, is to come to this meeting and tell us. So, that's how I feel. And if it's something legal counsel's telling us we shouldn't touch, I do not touch anything legal counsel tells me not to. I got enough to do with attorneys, not to have them deal with stuff for the town, too.
Maybe I could restate this a little differently. We have found the annoyance to be willing to comply with all of these. There is a dispute over the reimbursement, and I think it's fair to say that item number 6 requires the reimbursement for medical costs associated with dog attacks. I have seen attempts to comply with that. It's a fair statement, I think, to say both parties appear to be looking for something from the board that the board is not authorized to offer, and we can only go so far in terms of trying to be a party in a matter that does not involve us at that point. So I think, again, we need to be cautious in terms of involving ourselves in a matter that will ultimately become a private matter. Technically, they have not satisfied this, but I have seen attempts to do so, and again, I think we need to be cautious.
I would like to ask that you have the town council explain to you and you to us the extent at which we can and cannot get involved.
He has, and we can schedule an executive session.
Then
But
let's
we
do
would,
that for the next meeting.
sure. Again, I want to be cautious. We've spent thousands of dollars on this particular item.
Okay. In
And
the
I
event
just,
that, and I too have the optimism, hopefully optimistic that this gets resolved before the next meeting, but if not, can we have a scheduled executive session out of the next meeting?
yes.
Thank you.
I guess my thing is this, just the police chief feel that the neighborhood is safer now than it was when we started? I guess that's the big question. That was our objective, was to make the people in that neighborhood safe.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that anybody can answer that question. I think that what the engineering department would say is that the dog is compelled to remain in the backyard, and there is a secure fence in place in the backyard. We have proof of insurance, and we have evidence that the dog has been put in training, which were all the things that were asked for in terms of a public safety perspective. You know, the last item here is not a public safety item. And so, again, I think, you know, I wouldn't speak for the chief, and I'm certain he wouldn't make a statement to that effect, but I can say that the corrective actions that were asked for have been completed.
To whichever condition it was about the confinement of the dog, have they installed a humane lead or a humane run?
What they've stated in writing is that the only time the dog is outside of the house is to use the bathroom, and then it's back in the house, or it's in the backyard
With a person?
with an owner, correct.
Okay. All right, if you could, as I'm suggesting that if there's no disposition by our next meeting, we should have legal counsel talk to us about
I will speak to
our
council.
abilities. Okay? Did you say that was the last of your updates?
That's all that I had, yep.
Before you leave that?
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
Steve, was there any particular action, you brought this as a point of information tonight, was there any action that you requested
No action
from the
required.
board? Thank you.
Thank you. The board will consider the consent calendar items as they appear below. License renewals, 2 license, and a road race walk.
Yep, motion to accept.
Motion made.
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor of the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. This time I will move to correspondence. Selectmen new business, previous new business, updates, and selectmen closing comments. This is your wrap-up night, time. Mr. Clark, sir.
I only have one comment. I had a call from a resident of Rockland Road who was concerned about the lack of progress on the light project at Summer and Maple Street and wanted to know what was holding it up. He felt that he saw no evidence of any work being done for several weeks. I explained to him it was the winter season, but since he called me, I haven't seen any evidence, nor do I know where the light standards are. Maybe we should find out what the status, if you
Yeah,
could,
so,
about that.
the paving crew should be back out as early as next week, depending on weather, to finish up some of that work. The steel light poles themselves are severely back-ordered, and as best we can tell, I was speaking to David Lane about this last week, the specialty steel that's used for those poles has been difficult to come by. After I had a minor heart attack, he quickly pointed out that it's a very different type of steel than what we're going to need for the Smith School project, because my first concern was not for the light poles, it was that we're going to have some early bid packages going out a little later this year for the Smith School. But we're expecting the light poles themselves to be in town, you know, we're hoping late spring. I'm thinking by May is our goal, but they're severely backordered. We put the specs are done and the order was put in when we planned to, but the delivery date was pushed way out on that. So we should see the paving wrapped up and a lot of the restoration complete probably before the poles go in.
I'm wondering, because it's not the first time I've heard this question, whether we shouldn't put just a blurb on the town website or
Yeah,
the
we can do that.
DPW site.
Yep.
Thank you. And Mr. Clark, anything else, sir?
That's it, thank you.
Mr. Mills, any closing comments or updates or
I did
correspondence?
have one, and I can't remember what it is, so I'll
If
save
you
it for-
remember before I get to Dan,
Okay.
give me a wave. Diane?
All set, thank you.
I am pretty much all set, other than to remind people that on Saturday, it's the Kiwanis Annual Pancake Breakfast. It's $5 for adults, $4 for children 12 and under. And it's a great annual event, and the Shire will be back to do Mickey Mouse. Had personal reasons not to be there last year, so I'm looking forward to getting back behind the griddle. So welcome anybody to come down. With that, I will turn it over to Selectman Bennett for his closing his correspondence, and then his closing comments.
Just in addition to the pancake breakfast announcement, 8 to 12.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
So don't
raffles.
Yep, and raffles, and a lot of great baskets. Thank you. Veterans throughout the world, the country, we need to thank them for their service. Former veterans, current veterans. And keep them in mind. When you see a veteran, say thank you. That's it.
Thank you very much. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Danvers. Good night.